For now, Mary sighed tiredly with her pen scribbling on her old cracked brown diary. She was writing down what she was about to do and the time. Mary was about to wash the dishes and it was 2 p.m. She took her father's old rusty navy blue pen, dipped it into the jet black ink, and wrote that down in a new cream-colored page in her diary. Mary looked around to see if her husband's younger wife, Ariella, was around. She didn't see her. Mary decided that she'll take a couple of minutes to draw something in her diary. She was working on a picture of her father. As she was drawing, the dark navy blue paint from her father's pen began to chip off. Mary looked at the tiny chunks and started to cry. The front door opened and came a sound of heavy footsteps. Followed by that came another set of quick footsteps. Mary heard the sound of laughter and happiness coming out of both of them. She threw the pieces of paint in the garbage and wiped her tears, heading towards the kitchen. Mary started to rinse the plates and spoons. Louis and Ariella were now sitting on their bed holding hands. "What are you doing?" her husband demanded. A moment ago, Louis had been sitting next to his younger wife, tickling and forcing giggles out of the girl as she pretended to sew her dress. She was shameless, it seemed, inviting Louis's touch so easily. The younger wife sat silent now, staring ahead while Louis took the moment to address his oldest bride. "Up to something," Louis rumbled, "always up to something." Mary made no answer, but simply ignored her husband, continuing to rinse the utensils and cutlery. "So you're ignoring me now?" Louis added, facing only his oldest wife's back. "Did you think I didn't see you being lazy? There are over 1,000,000 things that need to be done in the house, and you're still stuck on dishes? Get on top of things, will you? You're ugly as a hag, but lazy as a child."
"Ouch!" exclaimed the youngest bride.
Louis ran up to her and looked at her hand. It appeared that the needle poked her palm and a thin line of blood began to ooze out. "What's wrong?" asked Louis worriedly.
"The needle poked me," sobbed Ariella.
"Was it really the needle, or was it her? I told you to never make her work. To leave your precious body out of these harsh activities is what I asked you many times. Bring your diary at once and let me see what you've been doing," hollered Louis, pointing a finger to Mary. Mary scampered to her dinky little room and grabbed her diary. She ran back to Louis and handed it over like a little shy mouse. Louis glanced at it, looking at what she was doing for the past hours. He couldn't find anything wrong. He looked at the last time that was written in the diary and then looked at the clock. It was 2:45 p.m. now. "You're still not done the dishes? It's been 45 minutes now. You were slacking off, and that's exactly why you needed Ariella's help to catch up. You are lazy," exclaimed her husband. Louis began to bandage her wounds. Mary began to notice that Louis would come home late. Slowly, he started to say a few mean comments to Mary. One day, Louis came back from work, but not alone. Ariella and her bags were alongside Louis. Then her life became what it was now. "I didn't know it was lazy," Mary told her husband. She tried to keep the anger out of her tone, but failed. Her husband began to look at Mary's pen, staring at the bottom left-hand pocket. He fell back with a look of fright on his face. "If you would rather grow up your prettier wife," she added, "why can't I at least fondle my pen?" Louis, face reddening at her words, stood and stared toward her. He froze, standing over her with arm upraised toward a backhand blow as she saw his widened eye. "That pen, it's evil. I see the way you write with it and how you stare into it," yelled Louis. He stepped back, breathing fast, gaze flicking back and forth between Mary and the pen. "You're evil," said Louis. Mary said nothing but only sighed. "You think I don't remember your parents? How they were slaves but acted high class? Didn't stay within their limits but got what they wanted," Louis maintained. "Her dad even went to jail for doing this, but he didn't care because he stood up for what's right." Mary never told her parents the truth since she knew they would worry. Her parents did so much for her that she didn't want to disturb them. Mary scowled, indicating no other features. I don't want any evil for you, my husband, she told him. No good either. I just don't care enough to think about you, not at all. You suppose you're clever, Louis said after a moment. Then he pointed at Mary's pen. But your pen betrays you. I see your evil there, reflected in the shiny paint that's left on the pen. Mary frowned and stared at her pen for a moment. I see nothing, she said, turning back to her husband. Lies, Louis roared. Your father's face is in it. Burning eyes, a tongue. He's staring at me with the most horrific face. Then the man squinted, leaning forward as though to second-guess whatever he'd witnessed of the pen. Still he wouldn't approach it. It was there, he said in a quiet voice. Then her husband returned to the side of his younger wife, whose girlish hands rose to stroke his heavy cheeks. It was, Louis murmured in a petulant way, still eyeing the pen and Mary. I'm not mad. Of course not, husband, Mary said, glad that his outrageous behavior had subsided for the moment. Mary finished up the dishes and picked up her brown crackle diary from the ground gently. She headed towards a room to write her next chore in her diary. When she reached her room, Mary examined the pen carefully, and she really didn't see anything. Mary began to write the time, date, and activity. She thought she had some time, so she quickly attempted to finish her picture, which was almost complete. Mary drew the last few details to complete her picture as tears swelled in her eyes. Mary started to think of her father. Her best memories of her dad was when he told her to stand up for herself no matter what, and when he told the countless examples of how he did. Don't you think I don't see you? Always plotting, always scheming, not like this pretty one here. She's my real wife, Mary. Do you know that? She's a real one, he added, referring to his youngest wife, who loosed a thin giggle. Mary ignored him completely and started to get all her equipment for cleaning the rooms. She rose to search the closet for her cleaning supplies. It was a mess, crammed with half-completed tools, scraps of clothes, and other unnecessary things. Louis liked it that way, despite all of Mary's attempts to order it. She rose and turned around, letting out a gasp when she was blocked by her husband. He showed large, yellow teeth, one of which had gone black, in a mock grin. He was close enough to have bitten down with them upon her face. You know what happened at work today? He asked her. We were making horseshoes, and one man took his gloves off, not looking where his hand was going to touch. He put his naked hand on a hot, fresh horseshoe. Poor man, his hand felt like it was going to blow up. Mary felt the goose flesh arise on her skin at the murderous reference, but she met her husband's gaze. Would you like that, old wife? He asked her. Would you like it if your hands burnt off and you couldn't write with your father's pen anymore? With great care, breath suspended in throat, Mary stepped around her husband. The man didn't turn, nor did his dark eyes track her movement. In absolute quietude, she managed to get to the room. She started to dust all the furniture in the room. She thought of what Louis said. She hated to think she couldn't hold her dead father's pen anymore. Mary saw her husband return to where he'd been sitting, then she heard the cooing and the kisses showered upon the younger wife. As Mary bent down to pick up the broom from the ground, her pen fell out of her apron pocket. Better not be slacking. Come here at once and let me see what you've been doing for the past couple of hours, exclaimed her husband. Mary picked up her pen and she recalled a great memory of her dad. Her dad was planting some potatoes and some thief was stealing their chicken. Mary's dad chased the thief until he finally got the chicken. He came back with bruises all over. Mary asked him why he did that, and he told Mary to always stand up for herself. She noticed that her dad began to breathe hard and look weird. At this time, her father took his last breath. Mary brought her age diary and flipped to the front pages. She went right up to Louis and shouted in fury, On April 2nd, 1901, you asked my hand in marriage. May 2nd, 1904, we got married. June 10, 1912, you brought Ariella home. June 12, 1912, you accused me of hitting Ariella. June 30, 1912, you accused me of trying to kill your younger wife. August 10th, 1912, you said I made your wife work when I did absolutely nothing. Ariella and Louis just both listened with blank looks on their faces. Mary ripped all the pages where she had to defend herself in front of Louis and Ariella and threw the papers at both of them. She wrote in her diary 5 p.m. on August 10th, 1912, and underneath that, she scribbled in bold words, I'm free. She looked at her pen and there reflected a picture